We got two different sort of characters to work with in terms of coloring. And yes, coloring would actually be my next phase right now, so let's just move straight to that. So again, we make a new layer, and I'm still gonna keep it in normal mode because I'm just going to apply color normally, like you would do with any other kind of piece of drawing that you had right in front of you. So now I just have to decide what kind of brush I want to use for this. I'm thinking I'm gonna start by blocking in the color detail. So let's find a good form for this. For example, this color. And I'm just gonna work with this guy right here. Now, what you want to do is you want to take this layer with the line art, and what you do is you press the pen down, and then you can move it like so, and then you can figure out where you want to place it. I want to place it right on top, so I have the layer that I'm coloring in right underneath it. So as you can see now, hopefully, it doesn't really smudge out the lines because the lines are on top of my coloring, which is exactly where I want it. So now I'm just trying to block in the color, nice and easy. I normally go about it just like this when I'm coloring small spaces, but sometimes you can also select just the outline. Let's try with the paw right here, just like so. You see now this is kind of closed in a way. So what you can do is that you can drag this color from your color palette down to where you want it to be. And you see? It's sort of like a paint bucket tool. But the reason why I don't use it all that often is because you can see here, it still doesn't really color all the way in. So you have to go back in and correct that. So that is why I'm usually just doing it manually like this. So now we have the color outline of this little character. What you can do is you can go in and color block some of the details in the fur, because if we do like this, you can see it doesn't really have all those tiny details of the fur around here. So we're just gonna turn the opacity up a little bit so we can see the lines. Go back into this color blocking layer, make the brush a little smaller, and then we can make a little fur detail. It's not gonna be that much because we can render it in afterwards, but it's nice to have like a little bit of detail on this level already. It's not gonna be that perfectionistic, just enough to show you guys what I mean. And there we go. I think that's quite enough for the fur, but let's just make sure that the nose is okay. You know what? I'm actually not gonna do the whiskers. That's easier to do when we're done. Okay, guys. So now we have this color block-in. And the reason I call it a block-in is because we block in all the details. I'm gonna turn this back on so we can see what we're working with. Next thing I do is I create a new layer. I make a clipping mask like this, and that means that everything you draw in here is connected with what you've already drawn on this layer. And what I did was finding this clipping mask right here. Super easy to make. So, okay. What I'm doing now is a little bit different as to what I usually do. There's a couple of ways of coloring, but I kind of developed a new method that I like and think fits my purpose, and that's putting in the shadows and highlight already on this layer. It doesn't mean that we're not going to work with it later, but I'll show you guys why I do it. So go back in and I select the airbrush that I want to use. Now I'm selecting this color, and instead of pushing this button right here, which is where you usually select your color, you can see how it changes. I just take my finger and I hold it down on the color and I select it like that. That is super easy if you are sitting and drawing and you just want to make a quick selection instead of going all the way back over here. It doesn't seem like a long distance, but like, trust me, once you're in the flow, and it's so much easier just to do this little trick. So I select the color, I make it a little darker, and then I figure out how big I want it to be. First I'm gonna do like a little bit of shading over here, not that much. Then I select the bottom color again, make it a little lighter. So now he's got these tones to work with. Now I go back into my darker color here, make it a little darker still, a little smaller here, and now I'm trying to pinpoint in like where I have, can we call it more dense shades, shadows. You can see it's turning right there with his little back leg there around the stomach. Maybe that was a bit too much. What you can do if you want a really, really clear shade is you can take your selection tool right here and then you can draw around the arm like this. Now we're making sure we're not drawing on this bit right here. Then we take our brush, you can see this is still selected, make it a little bigger maybe. Now we draw in the shade of the arm right there. And then when we deselect it by pressing here again, you can see it didn't cross over into the arm, making it even more like contrastly. Contrastly? The contrast between this color and this color is more dense, noticeable. I really need to work on my English vocabulary. Now I'm just going back in here and refining the shades just a little bit. I don't want to make a selection right now because I think it's working fine with just doing a little smaller size brush and then working with it like so. You can sort of see the claws cast off a shade right there as well. Maybe we want to keep it a little lighter when we go up here because we got a lighter color from the sun up here. Right now I'm just very naturally trying to work in some form to this character. Here you have to have a little knowledge about, I was almost about to say 3D. Actually, that's not incorrect. You need to be aware of where the light is coming from, and drawing in the shadows and the light is actually what makes the character look a little bit more 3D-like. It's not supposed to look too 3D because we do want to keep that 2D kind of feel about it. But a little bit of shade and highlight doesn't hurt anyone. See, that was maybe a bit too much. Just want a little bit of detail here to make it look like the eye pops out a little bit more. Did a bit of shading on the nose like that. Now I want to make an extra highlight. So I pick the lightest color. I make it a little lighter. And then I just go in and emphasize the character's highlight features a little bit more. For example, right here on the arm. This is a good place to use the selection tool as well. Like so. So right here on the arm, the light will hit it. So you can see it kind of separates the arm a little from what's going on underneath it, making it pop out more. Works really well for me when applying the color. So here we have, I think I kind of want to make his stomach stand out just a little bit more over here on this side. But yeah, I think that's cool for a beige shadow and highlight. You can see how it looks. Kind of brings him out a little bit more. So what I do now is I make a new layer. Again, I press clipping mask. And now I want to apply the color. And for that, I think I'm going to use this painting brush. I really like that. Or maybe the paintbrush flat. Both of these two are really good. For like maybe a rougher look, you can use this because it has sort of like some more details in it, where this is more smooth. I think we're gonna go with this one. So now I'm going to decide what color he should be. We could go with a normal black, brownish black of the mole, but I think I'm gonna go a little crazier with these colors. Maybe make him purple. Let's go with purple. Now I'm not gonna keep this layer in normal mode. I'm actually going to keep it in overlay mode. There are like a couple of modes that you can keep it in. When you're doing this, you could go into color, and then you color over it like this. But I don't know, I think there's something about overlay mode that works a little bit better for me. So that's the mode that I'm gonna keep it in. I'm just gonna make sure that everything looks correct, it has the right opacity. So now we have the basic color for this mole, and I'm actually quite happy with this kind of brownish beige on the purple color right here. So I think I'm gonna stick with that. Now just to show, when you go into color, the difference. It's not that it's not working, this color. You can see how it looks normally. But I think when you go into overlay, it's closer to the normal colors that you pick, and I like that. So I know this is the real way to apply color, but I would recommend that you do it in overlay mode. Now the next step for me is to start working with the line art a little bit more. And what I do is that I don't want to erase the line art just like so. That doesn't really work. There are some details to the line art that I actually would like to work with. But then again, I would want to save this line art, because if I start to erase it and change it, where will it go? Now, I did already make a copy of it, but let's say that you didn't do that. You want to slide to your left, like this, and then press duplicate. And you can just press this button, and that means that you can't see that layer, but it's always there if you do anything wrong and you want it back. So now we can work with this and not care about if we do anything wrong, because we saved it right there. So what I do is I take 2 fingers and I press down and I slide to the right. This locks the layer, which means that just like the clipping mask attaches to the layer underneath, this layer attaches to what's already on the layer, which means that now you can only draw in that. So now I'm gonna try to work with the line art and make it blend in a little bit more. I'm still gonna have this brush, and then I'm gonna select the color closest to my line art, and then I can just draw on the line art like this. And as you can see, it kind of fades. And that's basically just what I'm doing the whole way through. I select the color on the line art and I just draw over it like this. And as you can see here, sometimes you want to keep some of it, and then I just leave that right there. Like especially here around the mouth, it's nice to keep some of the line art, because it gives a lot of details to the mouth. But maybe you can make it a little lighter if you want to. I'm still keeping it fairly light here. With the nose, I think that I wanna draw out the line art a little bit more, like this. But can you see how it changes the, well, attitude and the look of the drawing a little bit? Instead of erasing the line art but drawing it in like this, I think it saves you a little bit of rendering time, because but this is a really good foundation for starting to rendering, which comes on a totally separate layer with no clipping mask, no locking, no anything. This is where you can go a little bit ballistic with your drawing. So let's say I pick this brush for detailing. Now I can go in and add those extra little fine hairs. It gives all that nice texture. I can edit out where I didn't think my line art was that pretty. And normally this stage takes a long time, because this is where you really wanna sort of make the whole thing look luxurious and smooth and everything. And really this layer depends a little bit on, say, how, you know, perfectionistic you are in your art, and how much you like the line art look. Because maybe you don't want to make it too smooth, maybe you like the whole line art thing. I could spend hours on this stage right here, but let's leave it at that. Now, what I like to do now is actually apply yet another layer of shadow and highlight. And what you do here is what I like to do is I like to merge these layers. So there's a really cool shortcut for that. You take your finger, I don't know if I can do it with a band-aid, but let's check. Take your finger here on the top layer and the bottom layer of what you want to merge, and then you just go like. Now you have this layer here. If you don't like to merge and you want to keep all of your steps, you can just duplicate all of these layers and then make a group of it. Let's say that you want to save this layer, for example, together with this layer. You can take your pen and then you can slide to the right, and then you just select all the layers that you want to save, and then you press group, and then you get a little group of layers. Now, I feel brave enough to just merge all of these, and I don't think I'm gonna go back. So now this layer we have right here, we're gonna create a clipping mask again. And this time we're gonna use one of my favorite shadow highlight techniques, which is we go in and we pick a dark blue, then we drag that over. It colors the whole thing, and you're thinking, oh no. But fret not, because we're gonna put it in to multiply. Now we got a really cool shade thing going here. And the only thing you have to do right now is to figure out, well, how light and how dark do I want it? I think around here is good for the purpose of this example, because I want there to be some contrast between light and shadow. I press it, and then I click mask, and now I can start to erase the shadow that I put in. So I go into my airbrush here, and now I can draw in the light, and I want the light to come from this side, just right on his face. Slowly I start to draw in the light. This kind of emphasizes his form even further. Maybe that was a bit too much. So even though we already did make some shadows and some highlights, we're really just emphasizing them by doing this. And now when you go back into this, you can see how much of a contrast you like to have. Maybe you just want to make a little bit of a contrast. Maybe you want really high one, but then you have to be careful with your lighting here. Then you might want to select, like I showed you before, and then draw in a highlight without drawing underneath his arm. But when you have it a bit lighter, it doesn't really matter that much. I think right here is good, because I just gently want to emphasize the lighting here. Now, a really nifty trick you can do as well here is to apply the color of the light that you have in the picture. Like, let's say that the color of the light is from the sun. Usually you have sort of like a yellowness to it. And I'm going to show you how you can draw that in with it looking really good. Again, even though you're lightening it, I prefer not to use color dodge, for example. That is a go-to technique of a lot of people, but I think it's way too strong and it's difficult to control and doesn't have that warmth that I'm looking for. So again, I go to my overlay. I really work with this mode a lot. And as you can see, it gives it a little warmer light to it. And I just think that really works so well. So yeah, that's some of the things that I go through when I'm creating a drawing and you know, just building up a character step by step. Just to go through some extra tips that I haven't been through yet. Let's say that you want to make this character into like a nice layout front page with a text. So yeah, that's some of the things that I go through when I'm creating a drawing and you know, just building up a character step by step. Just to go through some extra tips that I haven't been through yet. Let's say that you want to make this character into like a nice layout front page with a text, so it looks like the front cover to a book. So what we do, we go back in here and now we're starting to cleaning up. Well, I don't want to use this nor that. I'm fairly certain I'm not going to use this either. Oh, sorry. When you merge these layers, it's very important that you have the clipping mask right there telling that layer that the color you put on that is actually connected with this right here. Otherwise, I can show you what I did wrong before. If it's not in clipping mask, you can see right here when I merge them together, it doesn't really lock itself with the color underneath. Sometimes I forget that. There we go. So, seem like it's standing nicely. So, that works fine enough. I can't help myself, you guys. I feel like going in and applying just a little bit of extra highlight. Stay with me and stay patient. Once again, I go into overlay mode, which means that it fits the color underneath. I pick the sort of highlight that I want. Something around here seems nice. I go into my pencils, pick the one that I want, and I just make a little bit of highlighting here. Just a tiny bit. You can see how it merges with the color underneath. It's maybe a bit too harsh. This smudge tool is really great for when you want to smudge out something that you've done, making it look a little bit smoother. This is why it's dangerous for me to make tutorials, because sometimes I get stuck in something that should actually just take a short while. But I guess if you're still with me right now, it's because you have the time to immerse yourself into this. I'm just gonna make a quick normal layer on top with highlightings that I control the color of a little bit more. Like so. There, I just wanted to add a little more to it. But let's say this is your front cover now and you want to add some text. This is a new thing that you can do in ProCreate. You're going to add, and then